Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and on this episode we're going walking in Memphis. The topic of this episode, an episode of CWA Wrestling from December 24th, 1988. And if you haven't been following along, we picked this because we are still doing a thing with our good friend Bucky 749 and his brother Jeremy called Jeremy's Christmas in July. So all of the Walking in Memphis and all of the It Came From the Network videos I record during July are going to be themed as such. As you can see, this was recorded on Christmas Eve of 1998. Now, I don't know if the original recordings from that, because it looks to be from the Evansville taping. So, with the way the tapes bicycled, it may have been from a couple weeks earlier. I digress. There's very few mentions of Christmas on the show. So, again, I don't know if it was Christmas themed as much. I didn't know going into it. I just did it based off of the date. With that being said, if you do want to watch the video I'm reviewing for this, there is going to be a link in the description, as well as a link to Bucky 749's channel. Check him out there. Like I said, we're collaborating with him all month. We grade everything here on a 1 to 5 scale. Let's jump right in. First thing we see, we have Beauty and the Beast, which is Terry Sims and Mark Gullen. They come out, do a little bit of an interview, start giving pictures away, 8x10s to the fans, as I guess like a Christmas Actually, this is one of the few mentions. They say it is a Christmas present for the fans. They give a framed picture to Lance Russell to hang behind the desk, which is a little bit of a foreshadowing. This is a pretty cool segment. I'm going to give it a 3. Terry Sims, Terry Garvin, is a little, he's a lot better than a lot of people remember him as, and he's not anyone that became a huge star, but he's a known name, especially in Memphis and Dallas. So, yeah, pretty cool opening segment in my opinion. From that, we go to a clip from Super Clash 3, which, if you don't know, was World Class, AWA, and CWA all putting on a pay-per-view trying to combat what was happening with the WWE, because WWE was in full takeover mode at the time. They were trying to just run everybody out of business, for lack of a better word. But in that, we had a match for basically all 3 of the championships. We have Jerry the King Lawler versus Kerry Von Erich. And they showed clips of that match, which is actually a pretty good match, a really solid match. And spoiler, again, if you haven't watch the video down here first. Lawler does pick up the win here in a controversial fashion. Then he come in to do a little bit of an interview with him. I'm giving this whole segment a 5. Like I said, the match is really good. Anytime Lawler's on an interview, he usually knocks it out of the park. So 9 times out of 10, a Lawler interview is going to get a 5 from me. Next up, we have, and I've mentioned this on my videos about Memphis, about CWA Wrestling, one of my favorite Memphis-based wrestlers, Dirty Dutch Mantel, going up against Keith Eric. This was a kind of short match, not a whole lot of anything. Dutch does pick up the win. I'm going to give it a 3 here. Next up, we get a local promo for Evansville with Bill Dundee. He does mention Christmas. He is wearing a Christmas sweater in the video, so there we go. I believe that's the only two overtly Christmas things that came up that I remembered from the show. I'm sure a couple other people in their interviews said, because they were promoting a show on Christmas, so I'm sure there were more people that mentioned Christmas, just not as predominantly as a Beauty and the Beast and Dundee. And Beauty and the Beast is Garvin and Gullen, by the way. After that, we go into a studio interview with Dutch Mantel, who's pretty much calling out Jerry Lawler to get a world title shot. We have a video from a match between Lawler and Dutch from what they say is 6 years ago, so I guess it would be 82. Pretty cool video. Basically, Dutch keeps egging on until Lawler comes out. Dutch smacks him in the face. Dutch spits on him. Eventually, Lawler gives in and gives him a match, but he says he's not going to give him a title shot. Great promos. Great segment. I'm giving this a 5. Like I said, pretty much anytime Lawler is going to be in an interview, it's almost certainly going to be a 5. Same could be said for Dutch Mantel. Same could be said for Bill Dundee. So all that tied together makes this a great segment in my opinion. Next up, we do get Beauty and the Beast, Sims and Gullen, going up against Chris Fraser and Ron Keller. Again, another really quick match. I believe this was about 2 minutes. Beauty and the Beast does pick up the win. I'm giving it a 2. Just wasn't much of anything there. And if anything, if I was watching this as my first time seeing these two, I would be less interested in them after the match than I was going into the match, which is what you do not want to do. From that, we have an interview with Jeff Jarrett being done by Randy Hales, talking about coming back from injury, and he's having a feud with Beauty and the Beast. So he's brought back one of his friends, Tracy Smothers, to tag team with him, which is a pretty good interview. Jeff Jarrett gets a lot of disrespect, but he's great. He really is great. And you know, I think some of it's warranted. I think some of the complaints about him being on top in TNA is a little bit warranted. But I defy you to show me any point in TNA while he was there that he wasn't one of the bigger stars they had on the roster. I mean, come on. He's great. I will die on this hill that Jeff Jarrett's an all-time great. I think he absolutely is. And I think that a lot of the disrespect he gets isn't deserved. Coming from that, we go into another interview segment with the Stud Stable, which at this point is Sid Vicious, Downtown Bruno's out there, Robert Fuller, and Jimmy Golden. And it's funny seeing Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden here and, you know, seeing them even before this, and then knowing that this is going to be Colonel Parker and Buckhouse Buck in just a few years, and how different that is. Pretty cool. A good little segment between that and the Jarrett promo. I'm giving this segment a 4. Next up, we have the aforementioned Tracy Smothers coming out to wrestle Deuce Mason. This was another short match. Smothers picks up the win. Afterwards, we get the Beauty and the Beast come down. They attack Smothers. Basically, first they try to recruit him to join them, and then they attack him and put some lipstick and rouge, it looks like, on him. They get ran off by Brian Lee and Todd Morton. Overall, the match itself's not great, and Tracy Smothers is a great wrestler. However, the afterwards, the segment, the portion with the interview and the attack, giving it a 4. I thought that part was good. The match itself, if we separate the match, I'd probably give the match a 3. The afterwards elevated it, in my opinion. Coming from that, we get a match with Superstar Bill Dundee and Wildcat Wendell Cooley going up against the Medics, which, who knows what version of Medics this was. Basically a squash match, so I think it's probably not the more famous version of the Medics, probably just two guys, two randos under a mask. Dundee and Cooley pick up the win on this one. I thought this was pretty good. Afterwards, we have the Stud Stable comes out and attacks Cooley and Dundee. So we're setting up that feud going forward. And then I'm giving that whole thing a 3, by the way. Then we get another local promo from Tracy Smothers. Tracy kind of dances around talking about Beauty and the Beast in a way that insinuates they're homosexuals without outright saying it. And a little bit cringy, but you gotta remember this is 35 years ago almost now. Sentiments were different, times were different. I don't think Tracy is any way or was in any way a person that would be bigoted, if that makes sense. So, while it's a different video now, it hits differently now, as people say. If you're to go back into wrestling in the 80s and 70s and even into the 90s, and you pulled 1,000 wrestling interviews, I guarantee that at least 500 of them are going to have something cringy in them. And it's just how people talk then. It's like, if you watch a video recorded now, 20 years from now, one of my videos people are going to say is cringy, that I said some cringy stuff in. I look at some of my early videos that I shot, and I myself feel like there's cringy stuff in there. And I know my intent, so there's all that. Now, going from that, we go into the main event of the show, the final match, which is the stud stable represented by Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden, going up against Todd Gordon and Brian Lee. This was a decent match. It got a little bit of time. The stud stable does pick up the win here. It's funny seeing Brian Lee here. If you remember just a couple videos ago, Brian Lee and Robert Fuller would go on to be champions in World Class as tag team champions. So it's funny seeing them on the opposite sides here. Like I said, it was a good match. I'm giving it a 3. Overall, a quality show. If anything, the matches on this left a little bit to be desired. The promos carried it. The segments carried it. With that being all said, I'm probably going to lean towards this being a 4 because it was enjoyable. It did not feel like a chore watching this, where there's a lot of wrestling that I sit through that feels like it's a chore, that feels like it drags on. This went by quickly, which usually means that you're being entertained. Again, the matches, the match quality, other than the couple videos, the video of Dutch and Jerry Lawler wrestling, the video of Lawler and Von Erich wrestling, other than that, the matches were not that great, but the segments and the promos made up for it. Like I said, I'm leaning towards a 4 on this. Probably more so a 3.5. And I hate to do half, so that's what I'm saying. I'm leaning towards a 4. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. I would definitely recommend checking it out because it is an enjoyable show. With all that being said, again, we're doing this as a part of Christmas in July. Obviously, a little bit with the theme, not as much as some of our other videos have been. But all in all, a great fun thing that I'm doing. I'm so honored that I was invited to this, and I know you're probably going to see, depending on when you watch this, once the American Samurai watches, you're going to see his comment talking about how honored he was and that I accepted the invitation, but I'm also honored as well that they invited me. So the feeling is mutual. It's a two-way street. With all that being said, if you made it to the end, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, share the video, and since we're, again, doing Christmas in July, we've said Merry Christmas, we've talked about eggnog, we've talked about reindeers. If you made it all the way to the end, let's put Frosty in the comments for Frosty the Snowman. Again, just some fun things. I mean, who doesn't love Christmas? Who doesn't want to have a little bit of fun in their life? Throw a Frosty in the comments. Well, that being said, my name is George Coles, and we've been walking in Memphis.